I haven't really talked much about Star Wars fan films. As far as fan efforts go, it's one of the most dedicated projects you could take on. In a franchise like Star Wars, which involves fantastic locations, special effects, costumes, and characters, it's not easy to properly replicate what we see up on screen. I've seen a few, and they're all pretty good, but the one in my eyes that stands far and above the rest is the Legacy of the Force fan film. This video idea was suggested by Chris, and if you have any video ideas for me to make, put it in the comments. Anyway, you can clearly see how much passion, money, and work went into this movie. The sets are all handmade, the costumes look perfect, the characters look exactly how I pictured them to be. The effects and the acting are alright too. Not as impressive what you see in a multi-million-dollar Hollywood movie, but for a fan film, it is damn amazing what they're able to pull off. And the cherry on top is that this film is a faithful adaptation of the final scenes of the expanded universe novel Invincible by Troy Denning. It's like it's tailor-made for hardcore EU fans like me, which is primarily who I recommend should watch this. If you're a casual fan who hasn't delved into any of the Legends universe, then this may be a little confusing. This film covers the final scenes of the final book at the end of a 9-book series, which takes place 40 years after the original trilogy. As much as I enjoy it, the biggest critique I can give of this fan film is that it kind of assumes you know what's going on, as if this were the ending of a movie, and there was already supposed to be an hour film that you skipped. But to be fair, that may be intentional. The goal might not be to create a film with a beginning, middle, and end, but rather directly adapt a section of a novel. But even if you don't know that much of the EU, this fan film can still be perfectly enjoyable, and the opening crawl does provide enough information to understand basically what's going on. I would just recommend reading the Legacy of the Force series before watching this. And just know if you haven't read Legacy of the Force, then word of warning, this film will spoil it for you. And if you haven't watched the fan film yet, then go do so, because I'm going to talk about it right now. That classic Star Wars opening crawl lets us know that Jacen Solo, head of the Galactic Alliance, has fallen to the dark side and needs to be stopped. And the Council of Moffs that are working with Jacen develop a nanovirus that can target a species, and as we'll see later in the film, if you take a DNA sample from someone, you can use it to target their blood relatives specifically. Jaina Solo, Jacen's twin sister, is being sent by the Jedi to infiltrate the flagship, the Anakin Solo, to put it into Jacen Solo, aka Darth Caedus, once and for all. We open up to a space battle, and it looks great. The transitory mists look exactly how I pictured them in my head, and we also see Star Destroyers, X-Wings, TIE Fighters, and even Hapen battle dragons. We then cut to the inside of the Anakin Solo, where Jaina dispatches a few guards, and then comes across a paralyzed Murda Gev, who's being held prisoner by Caedus.
Gracious. Even in victory.
Hello, Murda. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're alive.
If you want to call it that.
Murda is depressed, believing that her grandfather Boba Fett sent her on a suicide mission, and because Caedus took a sample of her DNA to produce a nanovirus to spread on the planet Mandalore, preventing her and Boba Fett from ever being able to return to their homeworld. In Murda's condition, Jaina can't take her with her, but she promises to come back for her. In the meantime, Jaina gives Murda a blaster to protect herself when the guards she knocked out wake up. And in exchange, Murda tells Jaina that Caedus underestimates her, and Jaina's Mandalorian training should be enough to defeat him. She also tells her that Jacen believes that Luke Skywalker is after him too. This is the first scene where characters interact, and it's pretty good. The acting is decent for a fan film too, though this particular line from Jaina was really weird.
He did this to me.
Caedus? My brother Jacen did this to you? Or Fett?
Instead of being confused as to who Murda is referring to, it comes across as Jaina is totally surprised that her brother would do something so evil. And that part only stuck out because the rest of the acting is spot on.
I was conscious most of the time and I didn't see him. Now, get out of here. You've only got an hour until my next meds are due. And no offense, but I don't want you as a roommate.
No, probably not. We'd likely kill each other. May the Force be with you, Murda.
Sure, Jedi. Shoot straight and run fast.
You may be able to tell how exact this scene is compared to the novel, as they were literally taking their lines and stage directions directly from the pages. In fact, except for a few changes, the whole fan film is very faithful to the source material. In the following scene, Caedus releases Princess Solder from his cell, not wanting the Moffs to use him as a weapon against the Hapens, specifically Tenel Ka and Alana. Princess Solder thinks that this is a setup to target the hidden Jedi base. He refuses to go along with it, so Kaitis kills him instead. Jason then takes his body to the biodisposal pit, before blood samples can be taken from Isolde and used to create a nanokiller. Once again, an incredibly faithful scene, and Ty Nelson's performance as Jason Solo is probably my favorite part of this whole fan film. It's so believable that I feel like he is Jason Solo.
I wondered why I hadn't been interrogated yet. Obviously you were saving all the fun for yourself.
It's Kaitis now, Prince Isolde. Darth Kaitis.
The reason you haven't been interrogated yet has nothing to do with fun. We have other means of locating the Jedi base. So I saw no need to impinge on your dignity.
How very considerate of you. Not what I expected from child-stealing scum. You'd already taken Tenel Ka's arm. Not that you've fared any better recently.
Clearly Ty Nelson has a real talent for acting, and you can tell he has intimate knowledge of the character. Jaina follows Darth Kaitis to the pit, and Jaina distracts the guards by telling them that there's Bothan spies on board. The scene where she cuts them all in half is left out. Kaitis takes Isolde to the incinerator, but discovers that the sample for the nanokiller has already been taken from him. In the novel, it's a droid who lets Kaitis know that the sample was already taken, whereas here he discovers it on his own. The Moffs betrayed Kaitis, and the Hapen royal family is at risk, including Jason's daughter Alana. But before he can do anything about it, Jaina shows up, much to Kaitis' surprise, and gets stabbed right away in his midsection. They're pretty evenly matched throughout the whole fight, but Jaina is able to deflect whatever he throws at her. I have to give a lot of credit to the people who choreographed this, because they keep using the exact moves that they used in the novel, and it looks fantastic. I love the part where Kaitis flips the lightsaber back into his hand before Jaina can grab it. The fight itself isn't a grand spectacle like the fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin in Revenge of the Sith. It's a highly personal duel to the death that takes place all in the same room, and for that reason, this was probably the perfect scene to adapt into a fan film. Furthermore, it would have been so easy to just pretend at this point that Kaitis has both his hands. But throughout the whole video, they stuck to the continuity of the novel. Kaitis had his hand cut off in a previous encounter with Jaina, so he doesn't have it here. He keeps trying to leave the fight to stop the ship carrying the nanovirus to Tenel Ka and Alana, but Jaina won't let him escape.
If so powerful you are, why leave?
Finally, Jaina injures Kaitis' leg, and he's not able to fight anymore, let alone stop the nanovirus. In his final act, Jason Solo warns Tenel Ka of the danger coming her way, right before Jaina lands the fatal blow. Unfortunately, the film ends right there, so we don't see what happens afterwards, with Jaina mourning the death of her brother. It could have been a very emotional scene, and would highlight just how much of a tragedy that this battle was. Overall, as a hardcore EU fan, this is easily my favorite Star Wars fan film. A Hollywood version of the scene with millions of dollars of budget probably couldn't do any better, because it wouldn't have the same passion as a Star Wars fan film made by fans, for fans. It seems like Disney and Lucasfilm nowadays try to pretend the EU never even existed, so they would never show the appreciation for Legacy of the Force as much as this dedicated team of people. And if they ever want to adapt another scene from the EU into a fan film, I would absolutely love to see it. And of course, I'd review that one too. But what did you all think of the Legacy of the Force fan film? Let me know in the comments below.
What was best about working on this project is that it wasn't a question of somebody saying, okay, well, whose job is this? It was everybody stepping up and saying, this needs to be done. And whether if it was for the love of the project or the necessity of seeing something that needed to be done, it really was eye-opening and heartwarming to watch all these people who are fans putting blood, sweat, tears, money into a project that really will only be recognized by other fans.